So you had the experience, and you felt, I think you said you felt one with everything, is that right?
Correct. That's correct.
So was that strange, or did it feel strangely familiar, or?
Not at all familiar. It was a total reversal of my mind. It was what I would call a shift of consciousness. And instead of kind of seeing the world from my ego self, I was all of a sudden seeing the world being the world. As you know, if we look at the human being, just that term, that we're all human beings, and we look at it that we're in this life and in the world and pursuit of the world, more or less from the human elements, where we have anger and we have fear and we have jealousy and we have envy and we have hope and we have all these things, right? And that was my whole life. And all of a sudden I got in touch with the beingness, pure beingness, which is beyond time and space, has nothing to do with time and space. And that was such a shift that it was an awakening, because I had never experienced anything like that before.
And why did that happen at that time, do you think?
I think just what we were saying earlier, I think I was driven out there because I was feeling confined and limited and restricted, and something broke free. Okay. Now, probably if we get into maybe past lives and so forth, maybe I've had past lives, because in that moment where I awakened, in that moment, it was like I'd been there before, but I had no recollection, no memory of it. And it was like some kind of karmic, maybe you could say, moment where all the karma from past experiences or past lives all of a sudden came to fruition. But I can't explain it.
Okay. And how long did this feeling last?
About a year. But it's still what motivates me. Yeah. What was the driving force right after that experience was really to help people awaken and to continue to clarify and go deeper for myself. These two aspects. One, to clarify for myself, and the other was to serve others, to work with others. And that's still my driving force. And I think from 1971, I was looking at how can we make consciousness available to the world in a more immediate, very sudden, and non-threatening way. And that was my koan for 28 years. Koan meaning what I worked on.
Yes, no, I understand. But just going back to the practicalities, a lot of people watching this, maybe have a similar thing at some point in their life, and it's quite difficult for them to handle insofar it's quite chaotic. They have a shift and they see things or perceive reality completely differently. They don't always know how to integrate that in their lives. So you got back home, and I think you broke up with your girlfriend of 2 years or something, and then I think you started to go to the LA Zen Center. Is that the correct sequence?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Everything up to that point.
Okay.
Everything up to that point is correct. So I went back. I broke off the relationship. I said I needed more freedom. I needed to pursue something else. And then I gave the school board of directors notice that I'd be leaving in June. This was February 6th.
Yeah.
So I gave them notice that at the end of the semester I was going to take a leave, a one-year sabbatical. And I never went back to that school district, but I made it a year. And I went off traveling. And basically, for about 3 months, just hitchhiking throughout the United States and Canada, found a cabin deep in the mountains, and I spent a year there, 10 months, just practicing meditation, about 4 or 5 hours a day, chopping wood, carrying water, and really going deeply into myself in a solitude way.
That's a very brave thing to do, because that's a big shift. Because 4 to 5 hours a day meditation, that's a lot.
It didn't seem brave. It seemed like I almost had no choice. I was being driven to do this. It was like I had to. I had to be alone. I needed that time to work on myself. So it didn't feel like a courageous thing. It just felt like a necessity.
Okay, so you were there in the cabin, meditating 4 or 5 hours a day. So when you say you were meditating, you were doing Zen meditation, or
Zazen.
Zazen. And what does that involve, Zazen, exactly?
Well, for me at that time, what it meant is I just sat. I didn't do anything.
You sat with your eyes closed, or your eyes...
No, eyes open, eyes open.
And you look at a wall or a floor, or...
Either. I had a picnic table outside of this cabin, and there were rattlesnakes around my cabin.
Okay.
And so I would sit on top of the picnic table, and actually the rattlesnakes would come, and they would sit under the table. And they would gather in my wood.
Picked up the good vibes, obviously.
And they'd just hang out. So I sat on the table because if I sat down on the ground, it was a little dangerous.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't like there was just rattlesnakes all over the place, but I had a few around. Yeah.
Okay. And then at some point you decided it was time to leave your cabin?
Well, what happened was I got there in September of 1971, and by March I felt this tremendous need to really invite people up to this place and share the beauty of the place and meditation. So I put some notices up in health food stores and places like that and said that there would be Zen meditation. I would teach them how to do this, and they're welcome to come out, no charge. And about 17, 18, 20 people would gather twice a week, and we would sit together. And I want to say an elderly man, he was probably my age, he was probably 64, 65 at the time, came out there. We were all in our 20s. And he said, after we spent some time together, he said, I think it would be really advisable for you to meet my Zen master. I think that it's time for you to do that. And I said, it's funny you should say that, because just a couple of days ago, I had an experience where I realized it was time for me to seek a teacher. Because I'd been doing this for over a year without a teacher. And it was time for me to find a teacher. And here, within 3 days of that experience, I was face to face with my Zen master.
He found you, in effect.
Yeah, but that wasn't him. He sent me to his teacher.
Okay.
The 64-year-old man sent me to Maizumi, at that time sensei, and later to become Maizumi Roshi, in fact.
Yeah. And he was connected with the
He was connected.
Zen Center.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you spent many years at the LA Zen Center.
12 years.
I think you became a teacher of meditation there.
That's right. I became a Zen sensei, a Zen teacher, in 1980. It was interesting. He had me begin teaching almost right away, within a year. So I came there, I arrived there in 72. I moved in August of 72. And by 73, end of 73, he had me start teaching. Right. Which was kind of unheard of. And so I've been teaching Zen ever since. And I lived there for 12 years.